There we go. It looks like we might just actually be live. Oh, I'd be careful of that. Well, with a minute to go, we can just get started individually. In that, did you guys play golf today? Or did you play golf this week since the last time that we talked? You know, I got in 2 rounds. And I have not yet made my goal of breaking 80. I've gotten pretty close. I've shot 239s. Unfortunately, they were coupled with a 42 and a 43. But we're getting closer. I'm doing the things that I want to do. All right. It is 5:30, the beginning of What's in Your Drawers. Actually, we started that off because I was digging through some of my drawers, and club makers are terrible pack rats. And I did have some magazines from back well into the 90s, but I didn't think that would be pretty comparable to the topic at hand today. All righty. And this was kind of a gamble because the time frame is right in the middle of a lot of leagues, right? And that's a bit of a stretch. But for a couple of things today, we're going to talk about, Mrs. McGolf asked me to talk about wedges and bounce. Hello, Mike from Denmark. I bet it's very late for you, isn't it? And Stump's checking in. Way to go, buddy. Did you get a chance to hit the 7-iron yet, and did it work? Anyway, I'm going to get a couple of wedges here, and we're going to talk about bounce. Boom. Okay. So bounce has been the I don't know. It's been the topic of the week over here at McGolf. And what do I pick? What is bounce? How do we talk about bounce? Mr. Sweden, how are you doing, sir? And so in the basic idea of what is bounce, what I have here is the new level, and it's the tri-weight. And as you can see, it has a heel and toe relief. Let's see, right there. But that's not bounce. Bounce is kind of formally the measure of the height of the leading edge to what would be parallel to the ground. Now, what impacts that? Well, it depends on the kind of radius that you have underneath and where that can be, and where you might tilt it and where that might be measured. And the severity of the radius. Now, there are some that will look flat. This one, if you see how it looks flat, but then it's round at both sides, right? And the width of the sole can also have some impact on the bounce. All right, everybody's talking about bounce as your friend, and they would be true, right? Now, this one, most commonly what we're seeing is 10 degrees on the sand wedge, which is the 56 degree. You know, you can see more. There are some that are 14. There are some that are 8. Now, when you're looking for that bounce, and see that leading edge right there, that would be your measurement of bounce. But as we've seen in other videos, talking with the head of R&D with Wilson, the head of R&D with Mizuno, and the head of R&D with Callaway, is that the bounce is depending on the radius. If you have a radius right here, depending on where you would measure it, you would also get a bit of a different number because of that radius. Okay, but as a whole, it's if you were measuring it, if you were a club guy measuring it, you would try and run it right down the center, and then whatever that angle is. But normally unless you're dead solid, got to know, you're going to go with the number that they give you. All righty. So what do we do with that? So it's determined on how you play and where you play. All right, the environment that you're in. Now, what does that mean? All right, so we've had, wedge guys have been divided basically into diggers and sweepers, and then there are some that are in between. And diggers are the guys that typically go vertical and they take big divots, and sweepers are just the opposite, where they tend to shallow the club and they take very little divots. And that's the type of player. Then you have the type of conditions. The type of conditions being, are you playing in fluffy sand or hard packed sand? Are your fairways very well manicured where the ball sits way up, or is it hard and it's right next to the ground? Is your rough dense and very penal when you get into it, or is it nice and very well manicured or mowed so that you can get to the ball? All these things come into play, all right? And they tend to share responsibility. So if you're we'd start everything in the middle at 10, 8's low, 12's high, right? So now you're a guy that, let's just say you're a sweeper, and sweepers could use a lower bounce, okay? But you're playing in super fluffy conditions. Now you're back into the 10 again. Or let's say that you're playing in harsh conditions and you're a digger, okay? They just kind of feel that way. Now, does it have to be on every one of them? No, because you might use your wedges differently. For instance, the 52-degree wedge or the gap wedge might be a full swing club, and you just need a modicum of bounce, that 8-degree-ish type thing. Where your sand wedge is a utilitarian club, and maybe middle of the road will work for you. And then your lob wedge is nothing more than a finesse shot where you're trying to get down and through it, and you can get up. And that's for numbers. Okay. Now, if I have, we'll use this one. This is the Mizuno. You can't see it real well, but there's a lot of heel and toe relief right here. And you're talking about maybe the width of the blade or the width of the sole. Where on this particular Mizuno, you can forget the lighting. There we go. Now you see how this one has the chrome and it looks smaller. They're pretty much about the same. Or we can go back to the Wilson one, which is their high toe model, and there's a lot there. There's a lot. Now you've seen wide soles. We'll go take that into soles where you can calculate a little bit more. Now what happens there is where it comes into where as it gets wider, you start talking about effective bounce. Now effective bounce is sole width and then the bounce that you need. And so you can have an 8-degree bounce but have something so wide, and then you can have an effective bounce that's something that's much higher. All right. So a lot of these things are coming into play. Now, to make things a little easier, what I do is let's go back. Then we have sole grinds. And sole grinds are divided into two categories for me. And it is the guy that's artistic, right? The guy that will open the blade up quite a bit and take that, high floppy shot. That's called the artistic, and the other one is called point, click, and chip. And that's the guy that lays down the gal lays down the wedge and just hits it and lets the loft and the sole work, and that's the end of it. It's a tool, make it happen, away you go. There's nothing extra. So when you have something like that, again, we're going to go back to this one. This could be that point, click, and chip. There's not a whole lot there. It's just wide sole and away you go. Where maybe the T20 or even the new level that has this extra cut off on the back, where you can lay it open and that front edge doesn't come way up real high, and that you can use that. So therein lies wedges. Now, one falsehood, let's talk about a falsehood, myth busting, which is what we do a lot of. Myth busting. There's a lot of forged wedges out there. Wrong. There is not. Okay. There is very little. As a matter of fact, there's very few forged wedges. Everyone's like, oh, I love this forged wedge feel. And I'm like, hey, brother, sorry, that ain't it. That's just not it. And to the point, Vokey is not forged. It's a milled. There's some milling going on there, but it's not forged. MD5s, the Callaway's, nice and soft, not forged. Although they did make a forged product, But as for the entirety, their MD line is not. All right, Cleveland was one of those things. They were, oh, they're Forge Wedge. No, they're not. Okay, and to split it down the middle again, I keep going back to these guys. But Wilson and their high toe, this is a cast club, but they also have a forged model, and the forged model is pretty good. Is it to say it's better because it's forged? No, it has to do with the design. Again, like this one, like Mizuno, the T20, right, which I have in my bag. Is it because I like it because it's forged? No, it's the one that they made. And then they have the JPX, which is more of a cast model. So you want to be really, you want to really watch. You know, I wouldn't necessarily worry so much about the way that it's made, but how it's made. In that the sole grinds, does it look good at a dress, right? Some people can't take a high toe in the way it looks. It just looks so alien that they can't really look at it and make a good hit. There are some people that's all they can look at because there's just so much real estate, they can't help but hit it in the middle because it's just so easy. Some people like rounded toes, some like pointy toes, some like grooves all the way across the face, some don't. Some like the darker wedges, some don't like a lot of reflective capabilities. So there's wedges are very, very individual, right? They're very, very individual. And so, when you got to have the length, and then all of a sudden, because of such high loss, the lie angle becomes paramount to control turf interactions, hit in the middle of the face, coupled with the bounce, coupled with a sole grind, depending on where you want to go. And before we leave this and start answering some questions, when we talk about the heel and toe reliefs, right, there are dozens upon dozens of kinds of sole grinds about how much heel and toe relief. And everybody will talk to you about, and they will say, oh, it's about how you can get this guy open from here to here without the leading edge. And that would be true. However, there's more. Now, for those guys who play in the hills like I do, when you're in a downward position or even an upward position, that heel and toe relief become vitally important, because now that's not catching, right, as opposed to something that is not, which really has an opportunity to catch. You ever do like that when you go through, maybe it was on a downhill slope or even an uphill? It could be because the wedge didn't have enough heel or toe relief for that shot, okay, for that shot. And so that's my splurge on that's my splurge on wedges. Now, again, let's finish this off. Let's just kill this topic dead. Wedge shafts, okay, wedge shafts. Now, as a whole, personally, I like to see wedge shafts being made just slightly heavier than the traditional iron shafts, just slightly heavier. So if you had a 105 gram shaft, 115. If you had a 95 gram shaft, 105. Can't do too much about the 125 grams, although they do make 130s out there, and you could go with that. I like them just slightly heavier. Now, again, we talk gap wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge. In the gap wedge, if they're full swing clubs again, the shaft goes more with the irons. If it's more of a finesse shot, it goes more towards the wedges and all the way down. Then the other part is, do they have to all be the same length? No, they don't. They can be the same length. That was a popular building trend. I did it for years, and it was always to get it slightly more heavier as you went down the set, in order for that club to really want to drop and get underneath the ball. It tends to work, but really what's happening nowadays is they're moving down. They're getting shorter by 1/4 of an inch, so it's really not a big impact, but it's just to delineate the difference in the club, really. So there it is. There's wedges in a nutshell. Hopefully it helps you guys out. All right. Now, I'm going to go back. Now, and if you guys saw, I put out a video, and it was like on the world's worst club repair. Apparently it's getting a lot of traction, and it was because of the just how dangerous bad repairs can be. Okay, Now the good thing is we were able to fix it so the guy can. And the guy actually gave the driver to his dad. It worked really good for him, so it was a win-win, right? Everybody came out happy. But it just shows you how creative sometimes you've got to get when you're doing these repairs when somebody wants to fix them. Currently, as it sits right now in my shop, I've got a set of McGregor tourneys, right? McGregor tourneys, the Nicholas tourneys, and gorgeous clubs. These are beautiful clubs. And just so happens they want me to remount the 4-irons to be able to take to take a graphite shaft. Oh my! Give me a second here. It's what happens when you're still open. So anyway, I'm making the 4-iron to be able to hold graphite. Well, I take all the other clubs apart until I get to the 4, and I have laid heat on this head for 10 minutes, and to the point I'm wearing gloves to take it apart, and it won't come apart. I called the guy to see whether or not maybe he snuck in something extra into the shaft. He said, nope, put them together all the same. So now I have a challenge. So I'm going to have to do it a little bit more. So there we go. So we got folks from Denmark and we got Sweden, and it's probably 11:30 according to them. It's 11:30 at night. Whew. Thank you guys for taking that time. I appreciate it. I do. And here's Kevin calling from Scotland. Kevin, I appreciate you watching as well. We were just talking about going back to Scotland and visiting. We wanted to go to the northern part of Ireland and then cross the water and going back into Scotland. We really, really, really enjoy ourselves when we're over there. It'd probably take about 2 weeks this time when we're over there. And like the 7-iron. Good, Alan. That's good. We like that. All right, we're going to start with Doug today. If you spine a shaft, then mark it, then you flow it and mark it, which line do you use to line up the club head? All right, so again, spining is finding basically that hard side. So whenever you pull down on it, that hard side typically wants to come up, and you're putting a mark across the shaft on the top. Now, when you put that line on there, that line is we're going to put it on the bottom, okay? Or the soft side goes up top. Anyway, that line goes on the back side of the hosel. So if this is the club head and this is the hosel, you put the shaft, that you want to put that thing on the bottom as much as you possibly can. Then you do the flowing, and you get that flowing up and down into the jaw of the clamp. And then once you get your straight line, then it's the mark. What I do is that shaft stays wherever that shaft's already got the mark on it. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you. Geez, oh, Pete, you'd think I'd been in the sauce a little bit. All right. When you spine, let me go back. When you spine, you pull down on the tip section, the butt side, the hard side's up. That's one line up at the top. You put so if the line is here, I put the line in line with the toe. Then I twang down, and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And you might have to adjust it. When that is done and you get the flow, the proper flow, then I go back to the head where the shaft comes in, and I make a new line on the back of the hosel onto the shaft. So that's your marrying up point, right? That line I made on the butt, that's done, because it might not be there. It might be somewhere else because of the way that the head is made. And you'll find that clubs with a lot of offset will not exactly line up where ones that don't do. All right, so there it is. All right. Our Patterson Kinetic shafts was really good. You know what? Again, the best golf answer in most cases is it depends. If it fits you, yes. I've talked to the guy that's in charge of Patterson once when we were able to carry their product, and the guy is very, 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 very. I mean, he's eyeball deep into the science behind golf shafts. Now, Patterson was, if you guys are old enough to remember rapport shafts, this guy was in charge of them as well. And they are different in that they are a wound shaft, all right? And if you think of a wound shaft, and we talked with Mr. Victor of VA Composites, right? So if you think of a shaft as on a mandrel, all right, we'll use a pen. This is a model of a shaft. This is the mandrel, and somewhere out here you tie it off a point, and then this shaft is turning like this, or the mandrel's turning like this, and a line of graphite slowly makes its way up and back. Might do like this, and might do like that, might do however they want their pattern, and that adjusts their flexes and their profiles and what like that, and it makes an incredibly consistent shaft. The trade-off is sometimes it's a little harsh. I think this kinetics has maybe figured out how to do some of that. Most of the people that I know that have got them, I've been very, very happy with them. So that's about as good as I can tell you. And they also have some pretty loud colors. So if you like being loud, dude, you're there. Matt's back in the house. So how low did we go this time, Matt? Look at this. I'm going to say it wrong. County Silgo, Ireland. Again, we were talking about Kevin up there. We'd love to come back. It's some of our favorite places. It really, really is. But thank you for watching. We got Mark in Kansas City. Dude, I was little and I used to live in Kansas City. Out there, it was on the Kansas City, Kansas side, not the Kansas City, Missouri side. And place started with an M, just right on the outside, not Marietta, but started with an M. Really enjoyed it. I saw every American League team play at the ballpark, and that was before the fountains. That'll age me. All righty. Yes, it is Grayton Day. We're going to pay for it, though. All right. Maybe, in a lot of cases, some of those new ones, the new Cleveland wedges with the little kind of V-sole are taking some grip on some of the places for guys that they're a little wider and they take a little bit extra bounce, so it's good. There you go. That's just what we were talking about. And the V-sole has that extra bounce, right? And that's all that, allows you to get into those types of conditions. And particularly if you're talking about, depending on the courses that you're playing, mind you, of course, I only get to think there when we went there that it was the touristy, it was the tourist one, Kings Barnes, the St. Andrews, and we played in Edinburgh, and in those places where they're all well maintained. But I can imagine I got to walk one municipal type course, and where extra bounce in that thicker, grass would work extraordinarily well. So I'm glad it's working out for you. Butch, they did. The guys from scratch that guy was kind of ahead of his time. He was what he was doing was he was taking blanks and he was grinding the soles, each one by hand. And then I think what happened was he started getting such a call for them that he started ordering them with those particular grinds and then would finish them off to whatever, specialty they were. We had them here for a while, as a matter of fact. So here's what we do with the dust. I have actually a dust collector in Zoo. I have a dust collector, and the dust collector is about as big as I can possibly make it. And I've made a homemade unit, and I have a Venturi under each one of my dust makers, and it pulls down underneath. Now it's 100% no, but it does collect quite a bit. And then whenever I get done at the end of the day, I'd clean up so I'm not spreading it much more. Although I agree, I have seen it with some places that you were almost slipping and sliding on the stuff that they left because they never cleaned up after themselves, and that's a poor way of doing things. As far as chemicals go, I only use really two chemicals, and one is acetone, which is a carcinogen, and it talks to your exposure in time. So it's a time-weighted average is what they're really talking about. And I deal with this in another avenue of work that I do, in the time-weighted average. And I totally minimize the way that I deal with that. Now, the other one is you could wear gloves and little plastic gloves. They don't have to be too expensive to do that. And the other one is the grip solvent. Grip solvent's from Florida Chemical, and it's mostly citrus based. So, I mean, can you drink it? No. But is it really that bad? No, either. So it's very minimal. Now, as far as sound, I really take into account sound because as I get older, the body does not like that. And whenever I'm running the saw, which is very, very loud and obnoxious, I'm wearing hearing protection. And the rest of the stuff doesn't make too much noise that would hurt that. And I get a yearly physical, and so far my hearing has only dropped since I was in my 30s. Now I'm in my late 50s. My hearing has dropped this much, and my lung capacity has not changed. So I must be doing something well. So there we go. Okay. Yeah, the smoke coming off of it's a bit of a different animal when they get the flame on there. Now, could you wear something? Yeah, but the dust masks that we're currently being told because of all the COVID and whatnot, I don't think that does much. If you're really, really wanting to do that, then you're talking about a half-face respirator. He may not have been, but I tell you what, he's one of the best. He was a course management guy from way back, and he could get into your head in the biggest way. And it's funny because he was one of those, the old story of him playing at a Ryder Cup, and he was given 2 and 3 foot putts all the way through the round, started getting nitty gritty, and right there 2 or 3 holes into it, all of a sudden, or towards the end, he's like, "Oh, you better putt that." Well, he did it on purpose, not necessarily thinking that the round was going to get close. He did it on purpose because this guy had made a 2 or 3 foot putt because he was told to pick it up. Well, now he's not only is he mad, but now he doesn't have any feel, and there you go, he collects a stroke. So very good. And there's the CBX again with it's the wider sole, for guys that need a lot of bounce. It works out really, really well. So Cleveland Smart Sole offers a +2, -2 that are forged. Are the forged to be able are bendable? Yes, forged as a tendency can do they can go as much as 4. Okay, as a whole. Now there are some that probably will not, but as a whole, a typical rule of thumb, cast clubs are 2, forged is 4. Well, practice. Practice, and I got as much education as I possibly could, Travis. So how this kind of started was my kids decided that they wanted to play golf. One was a lefty, one was a righty, so hand-me-downs were done. In order to try and save my wallet, I took up this club making gig, and I started with myself. And when I did that, I realized I didn't know what I was doing. And they offered classes at Golf Works, and there was Golfsmith, Golf Works, and Mitchell at the time. And just so happens Mitchell was an hour and 45 minutes one way, and Golf Works was an hour and 35 the other way. And I went with the shorter time frame, and I didn't want to drive into Dayton all the time. So I went to Golf Works, and I got that. Then I found out about the Professional Club Maker Society, the PCS, and I joined them, and they had 3 different qualifications in which you had to take a 300-question test, and pass a practical, which they would send you clubs to. If you were doing the repair one, they would send you 4 or 5 clubs. You'd have to build them to spec. And if you failed just one club, you failed the whole thing. And if you did the fitters, they sent you a whole package of information on a fitter, including a video, and you would have to tell them what you would put in there, what you would put the golfer into, and why. In some cases, and then there would be a trade-off of explaining why you would pick those kinds of things. And then the club maker was another one where you passed another 300-question test, and they sent you clubs to assemble to very specific specs. That in its own right, all those things in its own right were experiences, because there were some things that I had never done before. There was one where I had to pull a pin out of a hosel of an iron, whipping of a wood, and things I'd never done before. So I'm cracking books and trying to figure it out. There's really no time limit, but you didn't want to sit. You were paying money, so you didn't want to set them there. Well, they went under, and then we started ICG in the International Club Makers Guild, which is very much still alive and doing very well. And they have the same kinds of testing. And in between that, I went and visited GolfWorks for a couple of more classes, and we did a master's class, and I met a bunch of guys, Ken Collins, Tim, bunch of guys that were super duper good, and they were more than forthcoming with some information on how to do things. And I learned as much from them as I did the instructor. And then from there on, it just became more and more and more. So that's what it was. So there we go. What do we have here? Cindy, Cleveland Apex. I'm getting messages of what I've got to go do. All righty. So we got Mr. Sweden here. Schlesinger B51 Mark I from 1970s. No doubt, right? Back in the day when those guys had that kind of stuff, it was amazing some of the things that those guys would put together. And that was when Schlesinger was, in the 70s, Schlesinger's was every bit of what every bit of a Titleist is now. I mean, they were the thing. All righty, what do we got here? Let's do this. Thoughts on the Z Series irons, 2-degree gaps between the 2, 3, and 4, 6 between the pitch. So the Z Series, now let's start off. I do like Strixon. I do like the Z Series. They make a pretty good club. We can get them in head only, but the gaps between the 2 and the 3 and the 4, as your clubs get taller, meaning the numbers get smaller and the lofts get stronger, you really don't need a whole, because look at what the fairway woods are only 3 degrees apart. That's what I would be looking at. Now, 4 to 5, that's a tricky one right there. I'd be looking at a gapping session to see. And then 6 degrees at the pitching wedge and the A wedge is a bit far for me, but maybe they've done some testing. I'm more of the 5-degree guy in some cases, and 4 degrees if you're swinging harder, right? If you're swinging slower, then the gaps get wider, and that's in order for you to have a true gap. All right. Let's see what else we can find. She's handed me, here we go. Okay, Cindy. My husband plays Hogan Apex irons from 94. Woo! What do you think of the new icons? Well, to tell you the truth, the guy that ran Hogan before this last guy, I knew him, and they were different. They were different. They were well made. They were just different. And I didn't ever get a chance to hit any of them because they were all right-handed. Now I sit there and watch some guys hit them that I knew their swings, and they would give me their feedback, and they really, really like them. Now, the new Hogans is everything that I've ever seen, people talking about them on the internet, that people do like them. They're a direct-to-consumer type company, so I really don't have any direct knowledge on that person, okay? are on that particular things. But if he's digging the Apex irons, he will certainly like the new Hogans. There certainly will be more forgiving. They will certainly be going further because the loft angles will be stronger by a ton. All right, and just keeping the idea that if he was playing the original Apexes that had what do they call those? The Apex irons in the 3s or the 4s. The 3s were regulars, the 4s were stiff into really stiff. And if depending on if he got them new in '94, chances are he probably don't need the stiff anymore. Keep that in mind as well. But yeah, it's a it looks like a really nice club, and they have that darker finish. I like the darker finish. It looks cool, but it also does wear. You gotta keep that in mind as well. I'm more of a polish guy. So hopefully that helps. All right, let's see what else we got here. I'm sorry, I must have missed a few on the way down. Look at this, Brazil. Hugo, thank you very much for joining us. All right, here we go. This is the other one. Winston, have you ever come across a Ping Anser 2 with a graphite shaft? I just bought one. I was wondering if it was genuine. Well, they did put them in there. It was rare. It was, number one, the beryllium coppers are rare to begin with. There weren't very many made, especially in the Ping, the Ping I2s. The Ping Anser, are you talking about Ping 2s? Because I don't think they made an Anser. The Anser 2 is a putter. If the Anser 2 is a putter and with a graphite shaft, that one I don't think so. Every time I say something like that, somebody will pull one up and there it'll be. Again, I don't think so. It could be very, very rare, unless it has some sort of designator that says Ping on it that you could find out. And on that shaft somewhere there would be a number. That number is specific to that club. Okay, and then you could call up Ping and say, hey, I got this number. Can you tell me if it's for real or not? However, back in that era of the actual beryllium coppers and the Anser 2 product when it came out, chances are no. Okay. And I got one more here that Mrs. McGolf wants me to look at. Where did it go? Oh, a bunch of people showed up. All right. Humble. Well, if I can find you, it's Humble Servant. Let's see. Winston. Hugo. Here's talking about the rapport filament wound shafts. They were great 3-wood shafts, by the way. And there's Myrtle Beach. Are you getting jam-packed with people to come down there now that everybody's kind of getting a little bit more relaxed with all the requirements that are going on? Evolution. Got a Fujikura Evolution 2 X-Flex shaft with an OptiFit 2 adapter, and it's hanging down off of the ferrule. When I try to put the driver in, it feels weak or loose. Well, chances are it might be coming off of the actual shaft, guy. And if that's true, you just need to have it taken off and just glued back on, and you should be fine. All righty, let's see. Here we go. Do you know anything about, let me do this one. I'm still looking for a Humble Servant on here. Robin's told me to look. True Temper Kinetic steel shaft. I have a set of Slazengers with those shafts. As far as kinetics go, I'm really not certain about what the kinetics are, to be truthful. The kinetics, back in that day, it was either Dynamic Gold or Dynalite Gold's kinetics were probably, I'm going to say, an OEM specific shaft for the Slazengers. And if I know Slazenger, basically what they were doing is giving you something with a slightly lighter kick in the tip section. How do you choose what brands to carry, and how do you contact them? Also, how do you get around carrying a million demo clubs and shafts? I found Hubble Servant. So after this one, I got you. All right. So here's what we do when we choose brands to carry. Number one is when we much like we deal with golfers, we deal with companies in the same fashion, in that we're in to make a relationship with the company, because as you get more familiar with them, it's easier to work with them. You get more advantages when you're on better footing with a company. Now, I can say if I want to buy $1 million worth of stuff from you, then they're going to bend over backwards to get my business. However, I'm not going to ever be doing that I can see in the near foreseeable future. So it's how do we stay in contact with the people? Are they forthcoming in information? All right, forthcoming information. And I'll use Callaway as an example. When we first started with them, I had opportunities to do a heads only account. I turned it off because it was a business decision. And as I was talking with the representatives from both, I decided to go with the rep that had the full account, not necessarily heads only. And it was based on some interaction I had with what were the vice presidents, the R&D, the putters, the marketing, all those people I was actually able to sit down with. We had serious conversations. There are some companies that just won't happen. And if that's the case, then I don't have an interest. The second thing is that they got to carry a left-handed product. They have to carry everything left-handed, just some left-handed product. To me, that tells me that that company's in the game to be in the game in order to do that, because they're looking to service the entire golfing public, not just part of it. And so if you don't have a left-handed club, I'm not carrying you. And then 1 million demo clubs, and Club Connects is a thing, and it is very true. If you look back here, all that's Club Connects. All this stuff that's down here, right over here, all that's Club Connects. Everything I've got on a head, Club Connects. That is exactly how you do that. Now, Club Connects is not going to like me telling you this, but Club Connects has a competitor out there out of China, and they are doing basically the same thing, and they're doing it in larger numbers and quite possibly less. So those are the guys I would look into if you're in that neck of the woods in order to check it. But that's basically the only groups that I know of. That's the only way you're going to do it, because that way one shaft can go onto several heads, and several shafts can go into one head. So it's just what it is. All right, there it is. Finally got you. Okay, Callaway fan here, still beginner. I'm wondering if you have any options on what's the best irons for myself that are soft and forgiving. And right now is the Maverick, right? The Maverick is the standard. It has a large amount of offset. The sole is what I would call medium wide, and you can get just about anything that you want. Mrs. McGolf, your dog wants out. She's whining at me to go outside. Now, in the Maverick line, there is the Maverick Max. And the Maverick Max is probably made more towards the beginner. And the Maverick Max is tailored off of what would be the Big Bertha irons. Now, the Big Bertha irons are extraordinarily forgiving, extraordinarily soft, and go extraordinarily far because they're very strong lofted. So if you get into the Maverick, don't be afraid to try the Maverick Max. And for those of you guys out there watching this, what I've been finding out, I was talking with the guy in charge of fitting, Mike Verska, and he is finding out that the The 3 woods are tight; they're very, very good. But I'm hearing a lot of positive feedback. I'm hearing better players playing the max. Go figure that one out. All right, so you might see some stuff in. You might see some better players playing the Maverick Max, and the only way you'd be able to tell the difference is the little Max logoing on the bottom and the back. All right, let's see. Here we go. Craig, been thinking about some irons to replace the G2s. Well, okay, that's about time. But their maroon dot, which is 4 degrees upright, if I wanted irons like Titleist Cobra, would I be able to match that lie angle? Probably. I don't see why they wouldn't. Now, when you say 4 degrees upright, you really need to have a number, right? You need to have a number. So if 4 degrees upright is 66 degrees, we'll say for your 6-iron. And that's it. You need to tell them that I want my 6-iron at 66 degrees and everything else to match through there. Okay. And then you'll know. If they say, oh, we can't go up that high, there it is. Now, to address the 4 degrees upright, although Ping has done very, very good job in there, start at the beginning of fitting, and, hats off. I think they do a great job. However, if you're in that 4, 5, or 6 degree change, upright or flat, chances are there's another parameter that is out of whack. All right. Quite possibly the club is too short, or you're very, very tall, or something along those lines. And that 4 degrees up, or even you were hitting a monster slice and that was their fix to making that happen. And if you were doing that, again, it could be the club was too strong, again, too long, and so you might, as you're doing this, right here, you are the guy that is the primo person to go get a fitting, to know your exact specifications, so that when you get this club, that it works for you and you enjoy it, right? So that you enjoy it. And that's really the whole basis for this. All right. Alan, hold on. I got to do this for you. Hats off, Air Force, even though it's Air Force. Stump, I was a nuclear machinist mate. That was the guy that held all the wrenches. And I was on submarines. So a Submariner nuclear MM1SS, basically, when I got out. Turned down Chief in order to get out. So that's what it was. And I also did time on a tender, which was eye-opening to say the least. So if any of you guys are out there, hoorah, thank you for your service. All right. So what else we got? Here we go. Got me a big wave. Fitted Nippon Modus 105s. Love those. Those things are great. Is it safe to get clubs with the Dynamic Gold S300 105 stiff shafts? Will there be a difference? Yes, there is a difference. Okay. Now, it's not to say either ones are bad or good. All right. The Modus of all the top end shafts, when we're talking top performers, right? When we talk Nippon, True Temper, KBS, all those are really good shafts to be sure, right? And if you had all 105s, they would all quite feel different. And why is that? It's because of its profile. Now, the Modus of all of them has been received notoriety that it is the softest feeling. It has this great feeling, slightly higher ball flight. That's because it's softer in the butt. All right, where a Dynamic Gold is basically is the profile from which all other shafts are measured. And it's a stiffer in the butt, stiffer in the tip, and a little softer in the mid. Where KBS, they have a different profile to get you a what they would call a tabletop ball flight. Instead of this curving, it would get up, it'd go flat, and then it would come back down. And a little softer as well. So, yes, it would feel, as far as the weight goes, awesome. But the profile, it would probably feel a tad harsher. Now, if it felt extraordinarily good, chances are you're probably like it. Okay. However, yes, the technical answer is yes. Unless you're a super duper low handicapper, would you notice a flight difference? Probably not. All right. All right. Let me go back here. Here we go. The STI. Thanks for reminding me. I have finished the testing. I have it and I have downloaded it, and it is done very, very well. Right. It's not the longest iron that I've hit, and I will attribute that to the shaft that I actually put into it. It's a little heavier than I like, and so it probably didn't get in there. Now, when I found the middle, and I'll have to say my iron swing has come back, and that is thank you to Dwayne. I did a fitting for him. It turns out he was a PGA, not a tour pro, but a PGA pro, and he was talking about this. And I'm going to shout this out because I am really interested in this. And Matt, you too, you're going to like this one. A guy named Mike Malaska. He's got a YouTube channel on there, and dude's got experience, played on the tour with Nicholas, and just has a lot of neat stuff to say. And a couple of the changes, well, a couple of things he said resonated with me, and I tried them out. And holy cow, I don't know if I'm just living off of a high right now, but it's helping, and I'm hitting the ball very, very well. So, yeah, if you get a chance, there you go. All right, we'll go back. Inzu. Demo shafts. What in most programs, demo shafts are sold to me at just like a PUD, which is a personal use discount. They give them to me at a slightly lower price so that I'm not spending a fortune. Do I sell any demo drivers? When we get towards the end of life with these, in some cases, yes, I will. Stump knows that. But it's towards end of life. It's not to say, and I'm in the middle of it, can you sell me a demo driver? No, I'm not doing it. But as we get ready, we want to send stuff back. We have the option to sell it. Like in the cow, we have the options to sell it with a particular shaft in it. Yeah, we can do that. Or when I'm done, when these heads run their cycle and it's time for them to go, then we'll put a shaft in it for you, and then we can sell them to you. But it's at the end of its life cycle. You are more than welcome, sir or ma'am. You know, I have considered this greatly, and I want to do a virtual one, and it's just a matter of me getting off my old butt and making it happen. But yes, I am. There we go. Well, I do have a drone, and if you told me where you're at, I probably could make it if you were close. Vancouver. I played at Vancouver. There's a golf course with my name on it, and I played it. And they did. I said, I'm here to play on my golf course, and they didn't think that was too funny. But very, very interesting. It was very cool how Vancouver is very environmentally active. I guess that's the way to say it. There was 23 different species of trees on the McCleary golf course. It was pretty damn cool, I have to admit. And it was during when the Canucks were actually playing there, and they were playing for the Cup. So you can imagine how crazy it was. But we got up into the mountains and stuff. It was great. It's a beautiful place to visit for sure. The Gaslight District was awesome. They have a steam-driven clock there that it just goes off on the hour, and it's really quite cool. All righty. Fellow lefty, very cool. Thinking about resurrecting the 962 gap wedge. Would it be possible to strengthen loft by 2 that's being cast? You would be at the very end of that being able to bend, assuming it's not been bent before. Now, the other part is you got to make sure when you bend and we're talking back to wedges at the very beginning, when you strengthen a loft on a club, that by whatever number of degrees, the bounce goes away as well. So if you're at 56 and 10 and you go to 54, it's 54 and 8. If you go the other way, it adds. So if you go 56, you go 58 and 10, it goes to 58 and 12. So keep that in mind. So if you're a digger, it's going to dig more. So there you go. That is a fact, sir. That is an absolute fact. TA7s were tough as nails, but boy, oh boy, it's tough. No, it doesn't. Not directly. We did look it up, though. We went up into Edinburgh and we went into their area where, it was touristy. And we did get a family name reading and the whole 9 yards. And we're associated with a clan, but it's funny. I don't know if you guys get it over there, but there's a credit card commercial where a son takes his father to Sweden, and they start looking up their name, and they find out that they're actually from Norway. And that's kind of what happened to us in that I went in there and found that my family, and if you find the McCleary spelling, and it's Eerey, that they're mostly in that area is mostly from Northern Ireland. And the reason being is because most of them came from Scotland, I'm finding out now. But my wife was a Cleary. So we found their clan, or her clan, and the trip was amazing where we found it. We had to get through the nettles and all this stuff to go find some of these relatives, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, I'd really like to, if there was one for real, that would have been neat. I was really looking for one too. If they had one, I'd have been in a kilt in about 10 seconds. Would refinishing a club in the black nitride affect the feel? If it's cast, probably not. If it was a forged, it might make it feel a little bit harder, but it's not going to change it radically. That would be what I would do. Here we go. Bend clubs without getting marks. Well, number one, I've seen a lot of people when they'll do it. So I've been able to get away with it because I have a bending bar that is adjustable. And when I clamp it, it clamps it on tight so it doesn't move and it doesn't leave marks. Now, when I open it and I do it just like they have those regular bending bars that are open, and the club gets in there and just the top portion of the bending bar hits it, and that puts a mark on it. Now, this is going way back go back into the Wayback Machine, and what we used to do in the past when we had a different type of bender was we would wrap the hosel with a copper strip and use that as the go-between before doing it, and it would take the denting. Now, you're going to use a couple copper strips, but it doesn't dent it. The other part is that you can put it back on the wavy wheel if you can get into it and just wipe it off, because they're going to wipe off. All right, let's go back up in here. Here we go. Hartling Bros Golf. I'm interested in getting a club fitting and building in the future. What did you have to do to get into the business? What would you recommend for somebody looking into it? I cannot stress enough education. And what I mean education is going to the people that have classes that do it and do it for real. And when I was doing it, there was a large selection. Now there's really not. Okay. And right now I would say GolfWorks has a very good fitting school, and it gets you the basics in order for you to get what you like, right? It's getting what you like, what makes sense to you in order to fit. I would doubt seriously that there are two independent fitters that fit identically. All right. There's always something that one fitter promotes a little bit more in their system than the others. For instance, I promote the proper length first. Some people may not. All right. And I do it from more of an engineering standpoint where this is the one parameter that I think anybody can obtain first. And once I have that one, I can build up from that. Some other people may think it's weight. Some other people may think it's flex. But as long as you get all the parameters working in harmony, it's just a different leg of the journey getting to the same destination. But I would do that. I would also get involved with, there are two club making or club fitting organizations out there. One, again, is the ICG, International Club Makers Guild, which I am involved with. And if you join, tell them I did it. And the other one is the AGCP, and they are a very business oriented group as well. And they have a different way to approach it, but there's some really good guys in that group as well, and start learning from that. There's nothing wrong with learning as much as you possibly can. Washawn is a great resource. He has a couple of books. Maltby's a resource, has a couple of books. If you go back far enough, the Dynacraft had a few books. Jeff Jackson was part of that, and he would do that. So there's quite a bit there. All right, one more, guys, and we have done our hour. All right, what do we want to do here? What do we got? We get down to the bottom here. Here we go, last one, very one in. Boom. D's back. When using a frequency analyzer, where do you place the mark for length in the clamp? Thanks. All right, so this is a good question. When in the frequency analyzer, there's a clamp, albeit whether it's 3, 4, or 5 inches, right? The end of the shaft is at the end of the clamp, not the beginning of the clamp, at the very end. So it holds the entire butt of the shaft. And that's where I put mine in. And they put it in there, and it's made for that. Now, does that mean that when you put it in your frequency analyzer, it's going to read like mine? No. All right. And back in the day, very smart guy from Canada actually came up with a way to make them talk the same language. So if I told you I needed a 4.5 flex and it came off of my chart, you could go to your chart and go to 4.5 flex at a certain length, come down, and you knew what the frequency on your analyzer would be. So the golfer could, if I made something, that you could make something in a repair and get to that. Unfortunately, I don't think that guy, well, the guy's around, but I don't think he does it anymore, because I was just looking to see if I could print another chart, and the system is so old from which I printed on that it won't even talk to the computer. So it gives you an idea. So hopefully that works. Here we go. Do you need certification? Personally, I say yes. It's a sign of your commitment to learning. You get them when you go through these things, and it shows people that you're serious about your job. As you get closer towards the what we call it, towards the Asian, they're really big with that. And I tend to agree with that. It just shows you the way that you can do that. I think I use both. I use standard and I use medium grips, and it gives me an idea of what's going on. Some guys will actually just change the grips right then and there when they're using air. Standard, I tend to do some, but if the guy's got really big hands, you might actually just wrap the grip in some of that medical tape, and then that way it'll take it off of there. So we're good. What do you mean Canadian fail? Boo. Huh? Nothing wrong with that. Every time I've been up there, it's been a good visit, so we're good to go. All right, guys, we're 3 minutes past my time frame in which I want to help you. If you don't mind, if you want to keep going with all these things, is we are getting we're getting close to the country opening up again, and we were doing this in that idea, and I think I'm we're running into the time frames when people start going into leagues, Monday night leagues, that kind of thing at 5:30, at least my time. There's a bunch of leagues around here. Tell me what you think. Do you want to keep doing this? If you want to keep doing this, please let's put that down in the comment sections below. I'm going to do one more for sure because we're still kind of on a, the whole country is kind of on a, we'll call it a modified lockdown type thing, and we will keep going. And then we'll try it from there. So again, as always, guys, let's see your scores. Go low.